everybody? Welcome back to the 713 Houston Sportcast. I am your host, Ruben Calvillo, and I'm with the special guest, Mr. John Wade, the other half of Texans Unfiltered. They have probably the best podcast for the Houston Texans. They have the Houston Texans stars go on their podcast. They had David Johnson. They had Antonio Cromartie. They're doing something special over there. Mr. John Wade, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. Yeah, definitely. If you've never heard us, it's Texans Unfiltered. I think at this point everybody knows James. James is everywhere currently. You may know him as Young Ari Gold. And then I'm the other part. I'm the calmer one. I'm there to kind of balance him out. And I'm feeling very, very thankful to come on your show today. I know you've been doing great things, and we've actually looked after your YouTube channel a little bit to try and figure out what you're doing right. So no offense, man. So we can kind of copy you a little bit.
Hey, like we all have to eat out here, man. This isn't just, owned by one person. All of us have to do something crazy. I'll do something fun that we love doing. But let's get on to the video. Something that I haven't been understanding, Mr. John, is that a lot of people are really thinking this Houston Texans team is just going to be absolute garbage. They have, some people have us, going 6-10. Some people don't even have us beating the Jaguars. And, I really don't understand why. And I know that you're one of the main focal people who are saying, hey, we're going to be okay. This team might even surprise people. Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, this is probably, at least on the offensive side, the deepest team we've had in years. Now, granted, we're not as top-heavy with our stars, but, that kind of happens. We have a quarterback now. And if Deshaun Watson is as good as we all believe him to be, he's going to elevate the talent around him. And the wide receiver room now has so much depth. Again, we don't have that top-tier player, but we have one guy that is easily considered a next tier down. And Will Fuller, with Brandon Cooks is a tier below DeAndre Hopkins. Will Fuller is probably on that same tier with Brandon Cooks if he's healthy. But if he's not healthy, you've got Kenny Stills, who is one of the most efficient receivers in football, and Randall Cobb, who's been around for a while, and he's always produced no matter where he's at.
And I wanted to talk a little about Randall Cobb. Can you explain like the type of leadership and type of play that he will bring to this Houston Texans team?
Well, I believe it was Toro Times that really pointed out that Randall Cobb played with Aaron Rodgers up in Green Bay. And we talked about 2 years ago, there was a little bit of a sideline conversation where billobrien was talking to Wes Welker, and he talked about how he wants Deshaun to kind of emulate what Aaron Rodgers did, especially when he was younger. That athletic, creative, but always looking downfield to push the ball. Randall Cobb was a part of those offenses with the Packers. So you bring that influence in and you kind of teach him a little bit of what Deshaun Watson is a different player than Aaron Rodgers, but teaching him how to look downfield and look kind of the same way that he did. And then just dropping that in. Our wide receiver group, none of them are rookies except for Coulter, the guy who's a developmental player. So they don't really need leadership in the wide receiver room. They need professionals. And that's what Randall Cobb has been. He's been around for a while. He's been a number one receiver in Green Bay. He's been a role player in Dallas. And coming down to Houston, he's just going to add that added extra depth where we're probably going to have like a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C. It's going to be maddening when we all want to try and play fantasy football and figure out which one we're going to pick. But from a Texans standpoint, it should actually be nothing but good things because they'll all be productive. Just we don't know when each one will be.
So, as we all know, Tim Kelly is now the offensive coordinator. If he does this the correct way, if he schemes it perfectly, how deadly do you think this wide receiver core could be?
Yeah, again, it just goes back to a lot of depth and a lot of speed. Deshaun Watson, if not the best deep ball passer in the league, he's at least top 5. And you've got 3 receivers that really play to his strength. Both Fuller and Stills have a lot of overlapping a very overlapping skill set. They're both very efficient downfield. Brandon Cooks, he is both efficient downfield and he's efficient as kind of that role player, like the Deebo Samuel player. He's closer to like a Tavon Austin type player, but he can actually catch the ball downfield. So people forget that flexibility. And then Randall Cobb has also been that gadget player for years, as well as being a slot player. So there's overlap. So if one of them gets hurt, those roles don't go away. And then again, they're all proven when they're healthy, they're all proven producers. Again, we're not going to have a super Hall of Fame wide receiver anymore. And as we've been blessed as Texans fans, like we really have. You go from Andre Johnson to DeAndre Hopkins, like that's all we've known for over a decade. It's having that star that just shines so bright that your quarterback, if you need somebody to rely on, is always there. Well, now we're just going to have a bunch of guys that Deshaun can rely on instead of just the one.
Yeah, I'm honestly one of the most not one of the most, but very optimistic about this wide receiver core. I feel like the talent is there. The only question is, can it stay healthy? And I also feel like that Deshaun Watson is about to enter his prime. He's about to play the best football that he has ever seen. I think it's kind of surprised that, Vegas has his odds as 28-1 to win the MVP. I'm certainly going to be putting some money on Deshaun Watson because I just feel like he's going to enter his own.
Well, the way the media has been shaped by, especially the national media, if you are able to go to Vegas this year, if anybody's able to go to Vegas ever again, place some bets on the Texans. We are going to outproduce what everybody's expecting. There's no way around it. The team is deeper. If Deshaun Watson is truly that elite level quarterback, he makes the players around him better. We're all expecting Deshaun to be better than Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, part of the reason that he's a good quarterback is he's always had Julio Jones to lean on. We are expecting more from Deshaun than that. We do not want him to be that quarterback that leans on a number one receiver. We want him to be that receiver, we want him to be that quarterback that makes his receivers good. We want him to be Aaron Rodgers. We want him to be Tom Brady. We want him to be the quarterback that elevates his receivers. And I believe he's that player, and it's going to happen.
I'm super excited. And now moving on to one of the players that has been getting a lot of hate, David Johnson. A lot of people are hating on him, well, just because of the fact that we traded DeAndre for him. But, I feel like if healthy, David Johnson can be an absolute monster. Once again, he's one of the best receiving running backs in the NFL. You could put him out wide, and he is a valuable threat out there to get the ball. What do you expect David Johnson to bring to this Houston Texans team?
Worst case with David Johnson is he's only the best receiving back in the NFL. That's worst case with him. He runs routes better than a lot of wide receivers do. And I believe he's actually would be the tallest wide receiver that we have if he was a wide receiver instead of a running back. That's worst case scenario. If he stays healthy. Real worst case scenario is he gets hurt. Everybody kind of needs to chill on him having this injury prone narrative and kind of not even think about it as we traded DeAndre Hopkins for him. If you think of it as we traded a fourth for him, it makes a lot more sense. And at that point, stop hating on the man. He's done nothing wrong. He's had injuries that they're kind of fluke. Like one time it was his wrist, one time it was his knee, then it was his ankle. These aren't injuries that kind of build on each other, because sometimes when you have a bad knee, next thing you know, you have bad hamstrings, and then you have sports hernias. Those are all interrelated to the same issue. With him, it's kind of been all over the place. So if he comes back healthy, ceiling is Marshall Faulk, that receiving running back threat that can do anything that you ask him to do at any time that your offense can be built around. Worst case scenario is he's Duke Johnson, but a little bit bigger. And, we love Duke. Nothing but good things happened when Duke Johnson got the ball. And you have that as a 1-2 punch, that's more than okay.
And then, I love the fact that he wants to be here. He's talked about how O'Brien, wants him here, that he wants to be here, that he's super excited to be here. I think that will come into play, the way that he touches the ball for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, James, during his interview with him, talked about at length just the desire to feel wanted. He's no longer a square peg being fitted into a round hole. Here he's going to fit. They're going to build the offense, and they're going to build plays around him. This wasn't like Kip Kingsbury out in Arizona who's coming in and who's going to force him to do something that he's not really good at doing. And what's the guy, Steve Wilkes, that did that beforehand? You look at what Bruce Arians did when he designed an offense around David Johnson, that offense was amazing. No matter who he had as quarterback. David Johnson single-handedly took those Arizona Cardinals to, I believe, the NFC Championship game 3 years ago. And This was with a hurt Carson Palmer. Like he's a phenomenal talent. He's had bad injury luck, and if he puts it all together, he'll be a fantastic player for us. We have to separate the bad emotions that comes from him because I mean we all love Hop. I will never say anything bad about DeAndre Hopkins. I will not try and sell anybody on we traded him because he was declining. It's none of those reasons, and I'll argue with that fiercely. But we have to detach that from David Johnson. I can have enough room in my heart, for no other way to put it, for both David Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins. If David Johnson comes out and plays like the type of player we expect him to be.
Just absolutely agree. And now moving on to this defense, I'm more excited for this defensive line. And the reason why I say that is because of Ross Blacklock. Ross Blacklock was somebody who I got the pick right on my channel. I said, we're going to draft him. I think this dude's a stud. When he did, I was more than excited because he has tremendous upside. He's not that far from here. He's actually friends with one of my, best friends. So,
that's awesome.
I'm excited about Ross Blacklock. And, how do you think, he could do in his first year on this defensive line?
To tell you the truth, the Ross Blacklock, I like him as a player, but he confused me as a pick. Because when you look at how he's built, he doesn't really fit into the DJ Reader role. It's more of a defensive. He's built more like a defensive end in a 3-4, not a defensive tackle. Like he's not going to play zero tech for us ever, but he's a young kid. I think he's only 21, 22, so he may still grow into that. What I think was really fascinating about him is if you look at him from his freshman tape to his senior tape, after he tore his Achilles, he lost about 25 pounds. He came back slimmer, and he looked more slippery. Oh, sorry. He looked a lot more slippery.
Yeah.
When he was rushing the passer, and he showed more juice with that than he did when it looked like he was going to be a traditional nose tackle. However, how that fits in the Texans, I'm very, very curious. Like that's the only thing I want to do is go out there and ask Weaver, what is he planning on doing with all these guys and putting them where? We don't really have a roster that's made up of players to run the 3-4 currently. So when we use a second round pick and you're not going to drop them into a place where we have pretty much a gaping hole with DJ Reader being gone, it's like just what are they exactly trying to do? So that's part of the reason. And I don't want him to lose. And I don't want him to lose that ability to rush the passer that he's developed since his freshman year. So again, I agree with you. He's an exciting player. To me, it's just confusing on what exactly the Texans are going to do with him.
So, and then just moving on to the other core, the linebacker core. Me and you have both shared our disinterest with Bernard McKinney. I think that Bernard McKinney is probably the worst linebacker in coverage, on this Houston Texans team. And when we're playing against the Chiefs, when we're playing against the Ravens, when we're playing against a bunch of teams that have running backs who could catch out the backfield, I think he is going to be as a liability. So do you see a situation where like somebody, Dylan Cole, could get more playing time against those teams than like Bernard McKinney?
Oh, Dylan Cole absolutely should. With Cole, it's just a matter of him staying healthy. Cole can cover as well as a safety. He is a linebacker better suited for the modern NFL than BMAC is. Bernard McKinney, 10 years ago, best linebacker in the league. The game has just changed so much from what he does well. He's almost an elite level run stopper. He's an elite blitzer from that level. He's not gonna back down. He makes a bunch of tackles, but he's just the absolute worst linebacker in coverage, and that's what teams are building their offenses around. Those short passes over the middle of the field. If you want to pick at the Texans, you find BMAC, you get either a tight end or a running back on him, and it's a mismatch all day. And we can't. Zach Cunningham is a phenomenal player. I will say that he is one of the best linebackers in the league. However, he struggles at coverage too. Yep. So if you have Cunningham and McKinney both on the field, that's a huge hole for another team to attack.
And then, like I said, I just agree. I just wanted the Houston Texans, to draft a linebacker in the draft. I was looking for Marcus Bailey out of Purdue, but I'm still excited about this linebacker core. I think that Cunningham, like you said, is going to come into his own. and really be one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Now, moving on to the secondary, one of the only concerns is, the safety playing alongside of Justin Reed. Do you really think Eric Murray, can really be that safety, like right on the side of him?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Honestly, with the NFL front office, the Texans front office, I say all the time that their player evaluators are smarter than us. Part of our goal with the podcast is trying to figure out what they're thinking. I have no earthly idea what they're thinking. From what Murray has shown in the past, big overpay. What are we doing? I don't know. That's a lot of it is the assumption they're expecting Justin Reed to take a leap, which he might now that he's healthy again. That's probably going to help him quite a bit. And then the best things that I've heard about Murray is he's an absolute beast in Madden. If you use an updated roster, he's an absolute beast. And then you're able to have Justin play single high, and they kind of balance each other out. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. And Watkins, Sammy's little brother, he's pretty good. He's a great special teamer. Maybe they see something with him. AJ Moore, whom last year I believe it was the Cowboys tried to trade away from us. He may actually get a lot of he might get a lot of snaps as the other safety, and he might be interesting because he's been a phenomenal special teams player. And if you look at the Patriots model, they take guys that are really good at special teams and they kind of start to expand their plate. The better that they get, the more responsibilities they give them. And AJ Moore has been one of those players that they've given more and more to, so he may end up being that second safety.
So do you see like another safety coming in? I know, Eric Reed has been talked about. I mean, that's pretty much the only safety been talked about. But I feel like they should still bring somebody in and compete for that role.
Oh, I agree. Eric Reed, if he comes in, he almost shouldn't be even classified as a safety anymore because you're going to use him as a box safety, as a small linebacker. But I don't know who the other starting safety is going to be, which is crazy because 2 years ago that was a strength of our defense, and now it's our biggest hole. I really don't know who the other guy's going to be.
And then just moving on to the corners, I'm actually excited about the corners. I know I had my friend Kenny comes here, and Cody both agree that this is probably one of the best cornerback tandems that we had in a minute. Garyon Conley, we know, played absolutely phenomenal when after being traded from the Raiders, and Bradley Roby, when he was healthy, he was very, very good. I'm excited about this cornerback group. I'm more excited for Lonnie Johnson. If you see the way Lonnie Johnson's been working out, you just think that this dude's about to just break out and be a star.
Yeah, Lonnie has all the physical abilities to be something special. He was very stiff, and you can kind of, if you rewatch any of his film from last year, when they say a cornerback is stiff, you're looking at his hips and you're seeing how does he mirror the receiver. Playing corner is a very, very difficult position to play. You can be an extremely physically gifted player, but go out there at corner and you just can't mimic what the receiver's doing. You can't shut him down. So if Lonnie really does improve that, he improves his footwork, he has the capability of being an absolutely great corner. Based on the conversations that we've had with him and with the footwork king himself, fully believe that he's going to turn that corner and he's going to be something special. Worst case with Lonnie is he moves over to the safety, and he's that guy that ends up being the extra safety because he could also be a phenomenal safety. He is built like one. He can hit like one. If we put him at safety, it's going to something tells me that this is going to be like K-Jax all over again, where everybody in the media, all of us, amateur hour guys that like to watch film, look at him and it's like, why don't we move him to safety? Why don't we move him to safety? They'll move him to safety in like 5 years. And it's like, see, you should have moved him to safety because now he's phenomenal. I can totally see us doing that all over again, but it's harder to find a good shutdown corner. So if he turns out being that shutdown corner, yeah, we'll definitely be excited about that. The guy that I'm excited about is actually John Reed. I've gotten everybody to come around on him, I believe, that I've talked to. He was considered one of the best cover corners in college football until he tore his ACL. He was a top 5 corner prospect when he went to Penn State. So he's just undersized. If he was a bigger guy, if he was a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, he would have been drafted way earlier than he was. Think Brent Grimes, the
Yep.
Falcons, Buccaneers corner that never got a big payday because he was short because he was 5'9". But whatever team he went on, he was always their number one corner and he always performed. I could see John Reed doing that. And I don't just see him being a slot corner. He can cover outside as well.
So, and just like before I let you go, what is the ceiling for this Houston Texans team?
Well, when you have Deshaun Watson, you don't have a ceiling.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. Deshaun, if he elevates his game and the way that everybody's expecting, the way that he's progressed, then there is no ceiling on this team. And this constant selling of the Texans being like a 6-10 or an 8-8 team, the only way that's happening is if Deshaun misses a significant amount of time. Other than that, Houston should be unhappy with anything less than an AFC Championship type run. If we go to the playoffs and we just perform badly again in the playoffs, then everybody should be upset. I know that from sources, Bill O'Brien is safe even if we don't have
that's what I heard too.
Greatest year ever. I completely understand why everybody would get upset if we go into the playoffs and it's a similar outcome to this past year. If we lose in the playoffs this year, it has to be to an all-time great team. Like, it just needs to be one of the best games that we've all ever seen, that we all walk out of, like the Seattle Seahawks game from Deshaun's rookie year. We lost that game, but everybody came out of it excited. We lost the game. It was heartbreaking. It sucked to lose that game, but you felt better at the end of the game than you probably felt since this franchise was established.
Yep.
We were so excited. We need to have one of those types of playoff losses, or we need to be in the Super Bowl.
Totally agree, man. Totally agree. But thank you for coming on, John Wayne. I mean,
definitely.
This was really fun. We had to do this again. The main thing is, I don't want to do this all by myself. I want to have cool people come on and talk about the team that most likely is going to give us a heart attack. But as always, guys, thank you. As always, guys, go Texans. And always, I'm going to say it, you guys have a blessed day.